it relates to each student that I've taught. My brother
Doug is the one, Doug Collins?
Yeah, Doug Collins is his name. He's 5 years older than me. He's my older brother. And when I was growing up, my younger brother used to sit. We're getting a lot of feedback. I'm sorry. I can't.
Alinka, mute. You need to mute your mic.
I
think so. If not,
Yeah.
I think it's you. You hear that big sound?
Mute your mic. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's only because it was a feedback and it was really loud in our ears. I don't know why, but it was.
Okay. Now you can smile again.
Please.
Oh, good. Okay. Sorry, guys. If people are watching, is anybody on today? Do we have anybody on here yet?
Well, since we're doing this in the day, we're going to do a 30-minute. We're going to get in and have that conversation about your brother and be here for 30 minutes. And when people jump on, we'll invite them to be a part of the conversation.
Okay, good. Okay, so everyone out there who is who's challenged with reading, or who knows someone who's challenged with reading, has a similar experience that my brother did. My brother, when I was young, my brother used to sit in his room. And most people, don't sit in their room. They're kids. They go out and play. And so I wanted to go play tennis. I wanted to go down to the beach, or I wanted to go play football, or I want to go up in the mountains or the hills and take hikes. And on a weekend, he would be sitting there, and he would be looking at a book. And he would be praying. He literally, because we went to church, and so he would pray that the words would jump off the page for him, like he believed that they did for everyone else. And that's a major, major deal, to have to be sitting there when you're a kid wanting to go outside. It's sunny outside, and other kids want to play, and people are asking you to come play. And you sit there disciplined and say, no, I've got to stay here. And it's almost like I can't be alive. I can't watch the sunset until I can read. So that was his experience. And then as he got older and he was out in the world, he had a secret. That's a big deal too, to have a secret, to live a life where you have a secret, because you believe you're the only person who can't read.
You know what? I actually, when you said that right there, the way you said it is very true how I think my life has been. And I was in advertising.
Yeah.
I depended on so many people to make sure that all the details were in line. And I enjoyed the advertising part of it. That's creative. It has the ability to. So that's really unique, the way you described the way your brother had came up with this method. That was incredible.
So the other part of what he did is the compensation was he became an artist. So he's an incredible artist. He's really talented, and he does chalk on black and beautiful chalk drawings with all kinds of neat imagery, a lot of archetype imagery. And then he became a musician, and he can play any instrument. And he got involved with playing the flute. So he actually he has perfect pitch, and so he would actually create his own flutes. He'd take reeds and he would cut the right place and play it, and he would create perfect pitch, flutes and reed, hand flutes. So, and then he could sit down and he was trying to work on something. He'd just sit down and play the piano, and all of a sudden he would go, oh yeah, this, and he'd find them, and he would play a song. So his talents were huge. And then he had a great memory. He would really, really remember lots of information. And so we could tell him information, or he would see a movie and he would remember everything about it in detail. So for some reason, I'm getting a lot of feedback. I don't know why. Is somebody kicking? Linka, do you have your sound on? And can you mute your sound? But then can you hear also if you mute? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's keep you muted. Okay. Okay. So,
That's it. But,
what my brother would do was he was all this fantastic self, but he again had the secret. Now, the other thing was socially, since he had a secret, then he didn't feel very confident, and he was very aware when they had that reading circle in front of the class where he had to stand up and read that he couldn't do that. And when he did do that, it was very embarrassing. So he acted embarrassed. He acted inferior and insecure. So he stopped being invited or wasn't invited to the social parties that people had, the birthday parties and things, because they somehow didn't like him or they didn't feel comfortable with him. So those are big things to have happen to you when you're a young person, and then as you grow into and being an adult, you carry that stuff with you until you learn how to read. Okay, so each student that I have that I teach comes to me with a secret.
yeah.
They come to me with a secret. They come to me with a hesitance to even deal with the secret. They don't even want me to know to the extent they have a secret, so they don't want me to know. They don't want me to teach them because then I'm going to observe them and maybe I would know, which is ideal with our universal reading method online. I mean, it's ideal because the student doesn't have anybody there. I'm not there. In fact, when I'm doing the reading method online, a lot of people think, "Could you hear me? Or are you there?" You know, because I'll say things like louder, and I know when to say louder because every student got quieter at that time. So I'm saying louder, and they're going, "Oh, I am being kind of muffled." That I did drop my voice, and so I'm telling them to be louder. So they think, "Oh, he must be there. There must be somebody on the other side," but I'm not there. So that's really a big deal because then they can do it in the complete privacy of their home and there's no judgment, there's no criticism. Now, when I'm teaching people, we're teaching it online, I'm teaching it at any time, but online, we're teaching 7 concepts. That's a big thing. That 7 concepts is the key to the brain taking in this information. And if we made it 8 or 9 or 10, it doesn't happen. It's kind of like my phone number is 858-945-5007. And if you listen to that number, you go, wow, let me write it down and then I could print it in somewhere. But if I say my phone number is 945-5007, you go 945-5007, that's easy. And you just put it in your phone or you just print it out really fast or you remember it. So 7 is a big influence on our reading method. 7 concepts. Well, when I teach it and I'm there, a human being, you wonder if I like you. You ask yourself, do you like me? Am I going to grade you? I become 3, 4, 5 concepts. What do I smell like? What do I look like? Who do I remind you of? Am I a teacher that you had a long time ago? Do you remember this teacher? Did you like them? I mean, the brain goes to a lot of places just with a very minor stimulus of a person. So when you have a teacher in front of the class, it's not just about what they're learning. It's about everything that's happening in the room. I have students who I work with that work best if I close the blinds. Okay, so I close the blinds and they can't see out. That's a big deal. I mean, they don't have any distraction. And I'm not there teaching them. I'm behind them. So if they come to my house and I put them on the video. So it makes a huge difference. However, if I have the windows open, which is pretty day outside, which I thought would be the best way to do it, sit them in a beautiful room with preview. And if they do, they look outside and they get distracted, but not just distracted by things. It's just their brain wanders and more concepts take place. A car goes by. That's a concept. So when they don't have those distracting concepts, like a teacher, or like all the things that are on the board, or all the pictures that are around the room, or all the students that are before them, and they can just focus on the 7 concepts, then they have this incredible experience of transforming into being a reader. Besides the fact that we're telling them the information they need to be able to learn to read.
So the point here is that you have the opportunity to take 40 years or whatever your lifetime of not being able to read and listening to these sounds, and they make an impression on the brain that makes it simple for you to understand, and also easy for the long-term effects of sounding out words, which that's not really what we're doing here at all.
Well, and that's the amazing part of it, and it was a surprise to me, and it was that my brother developed a reading method, and that we were actually impacting the brain. I mean, often we think about reading or learning something. It's like you're supposed to memorize something and a bunch of rules and then apply them, and then you use them. You don't necessarily know that there's a brain that changes, that there's what's called plasticity taking place in the brain. And when I went to a neuroscientist, I said, I'm very confused. How is it that in 2.5 hours, I can teach this person this reading method? At that time, I was teaching it personally and not on a video. And that person is becoming a reader in 2.5 hours. And I'm watching my brother teach a student. And in 2.5 hours, sometimes it was less. The first person I taught, Ellen, I think it was less than, it was 2 hours and 45 minutes, like that. 1 hour and 45 minutes. So it was really a short period of time. This brain was now doing something different than it did before. And I could tell that it had something to do with the brain, but I wasn't sure what. It was like magic. And so when I talked to Barry Schwartz, the neuroscientist, he said and explained to me that we were activating 2 dormant parts of the brain, that we were sending neural pathways, information down a neural pathway to another part of the brain and accessing that part of the brain. And that part of the brain was coming on and processing the information and doing it easily. That's the most amazing thing. This isn't hard. And this is 7 concepts, and all 7 are simple. Like if I say, like the first concept is what does your mouth do when you read? What does your mouth do when you read? It's a very simple concept, but no one ever asks anybody when they read, what does their mouth do? It's never been asked before. Never really explored that. Your mouth opens and closes. And like it's a duh. It opens and closes when you read. It's going to open and close because you're going to speak. Oh, we're going to speak when we read. Yeah. And we're going to make sounds. We're going to make what kind of sounds? Open mouth and closing mouth sounds. Opening mouth and closing mouth sounds. Those are the consonants. Those are the opening mouth and closing mouth sounds. And then we have the vowels. And what is a vowel sound? It's an open mouth sound. And we stay open until we make a consonant sound. So we have opening. We got to open. Ah. And then we have to close. And in between there, we have a vowel. And that's the opening and closing mouth sounds. So that's just the first concept. That's pretty, basic. I don't even ask the people to understand that or to answer the question or to tell me or to think, other than just to hear me tell them that question and then have them think about it. And then they remember, well, Dad, when he was at breakfast, he would read the newspaper and he put the newspaper in front of him and he didn't say a word. So they go to school and they say, we're going to read. And they go, well, Dad didn't open his mouth. So I didn't know I was supposed to open my mouth and be aware that I'm making sounds. But these are, I call them duh. I mean, like, of course.
Well, my understanding is that the sound impacts the brain in such a way that when you repeat these sounds, it makes an impression.
Yeah. When you make the sounds, there's a feeling inside your heart. I mean, I taught this woman recently. She's 88 years old, and I just adore her. Her name is Jackie, and I'll leave all the other description of her behind, so no one knows who I'm talking about. But Jackie, and Jackie was a reader. She was a good reader, and she was actually a writer and did some work in Hollywood, and she was quite profound in her writing. And so when she was wanting to have the reading method to open up more of her mind as she gets older. She wanted to have more fluency and more comfort with their thoughts and a greater memory. So I taught her the reading method, and she said, I can feel when I'm making this sound, I'm feeling the sound in my heart. Yeah. And I've always had it in my brain. I was always thinking. We talk about the words in therapy. There's therapy words called intellectualizing your feelings. Mm-hmm. And you intellectualize your feelings. You know what you feel. You know what you're thinking. But it's all thinking. and there's no heart into it. And so in the reading method, it happens is that not only do people learn to read, but they also begin to start feeling those sounds of the words they're using, the words they're reading and they're seeing, and they start feeling what the author was trying to say. I mean, have you ever thought about it that a book is just a communication? It's somebody over there and he says, hi, I want to tell you what I saw and what I see and what I feel. I want to tell you a story that I want to tell you this story. And I want you to feel the story. That's for the whole purpose they wrote the book. And then often we sit there because we learned to read and we go through this and we just read words and we don't feel anything. And then we just look and we have a story and people say, okay, did this little boy have a red hat on? Or was the guy with the green hat? Was the mother the one with the blonde hair? Or was the one that was a brunette? And we start putting together this status, the data, so that we can report back. But the guy that wrote the book or wrote the story doesn't want you to learn the data. He didn't care if you remembered she wore a red hat or a green hat. He wanted you to feel something about this human being person he was talking about. I mean, even in Dick and Jane, you know, they still run up the top of the hill. And you get a picture, if you're reading it, of what it's like and a memory of what it was like for you to run up to the top of the hill with your dog chasing you. That's a word picture. But if it's just Dick, Jane, Spot, and Mom, and it's just words, then it's boring. And why would anybody want to read that? Like, I had a 12-year-old boy, and he was reading at a fourth grade, third grade, possibly. He was really frustrated with reading, but his teachers were giving him very, very young books to read, and so he was assigned to read a book for that week, and he came to the reading method, and I taught him the reading method, and at the end I had him read from an adult book, of which he read. He read 2 paragraphs, and it happens to be about the relationship a son had with his father, and his father was there to bring him to the reading method. He was very frustrated with him because he felt he just wasn't trying, and so the son learned to read it, and then he read from that book, and then we said, "Do you understand what you're reading?" He says, "Yeah, this is a story about me and my dad." So obviously, he had a feeling about this experience. So at the end, he was wondering if this process we taught him, this reading process, would work with the book his teacher gave him. So he said, and that's what's happened. People haven't read. They don't know if they can read someplace else or if they're going to forget it or because they have in the past. So he runs out in the car and he brings back the book and he starts reading the Dick and Jane book, fourth grade, you know, very, very simple stuff. Has pictures in it, big letters, and he's reading it. And he puts his finger down and he looks at me and goes, why did she have me read this? This is boring. And he actually goes, wondering, does she like me? I mean, does she give me this thing because she doesn't like me to have me read this boring? I mean, like, I don't want to read this. He said, but can I read more in the book that you gave me? And I said, sure. So he said, he got up out of his chair and he took that book and he went into the living room and he read the rest of the time we were there. And then we talked with the father about acceptance and understanding his son and made some changes. And it was a big deal. Big deal. So the reading method transforms people. It transforms a person from having one type of life and then experiencing life on a deeper level and seeing and feeling deeper. And also, obviously, being able to read words, but those words are communications from the author to them, or the writer to them. And then, therefore, there's a passing of information. And then they learn that. They feel that. They have an experience. They comprehend. And they want to know more, and they want to know more, and they all of a sudden start looking everywhere for information. Like, oh my gosh, there's that store I went to that has the red sign on it. Oh my God, it's called Target. Oh, that's Target. Wow. Okay, yeah. But before they'd not even known what that red sign said. What's that T stands for?
So we're here today with Craig Collins, and he and his brother actually invented the universal reading method, and he's talking specifically about how the reading method impacts the brain and through the feelings. So the sounds and the syllables that are said out loud and it can be read in 2.5 hours. It's also a feeling as well as a learning experience that they start to feel the words that they're saying, and those feelings are associated with with the article that they're reading, and they get excited, and people can get excited over and over again because now it starts to associate feelings with what they're reading.
Yes, and one of the things I think is to really be aware of is to be in the shoes of someone who is challenged with reading. We have what they have at school called IQ tests, intelligence quotient, and so it decided if somebody was smart or not, and everybody wanted to get the highest grade on the IQ test. A 90 would be great, or above 90, that would be wonderful. But they had to be able to look at the words that were in the test to be able to communicate what they knew. And so they didn't know what those words meant, and they couldn't read the words. So therefore, they had a very low IQ, intelligence quotient. I mean, they weren't intelligent if they didn't do well on the test. And that's not true. They just couldn't read. Had nothing to do with their intelligence. And I think if you're a parent out there and you have children, and before they went to school, or even when you're spending time with them on the weekend, you see how intelligent they are. They remember things. They remind you of things. They come up with the answer. They figure out a puzzle. They remember that you turn right here and turn left here to get someplace. And and you realize that they're really intelligent. So that's really true. Most likely they're brilliant. And obviously, imagine being able to accomplish all those tasks that you do with words, without words, and still accomplish them. Still go to the restaurant and pick out the cheeseburger they want and the fries, and to be able to get from point A to point B, and to remember how to get home from school and whatever without any words at all. And to go to school and spend all that time there in school. I mean, if you have a kid that can't read and they go to school and they don't get in trouble, I would be more concerned about that, because if they can go shut down and be good with their hands on their desks for the entire day and not cause a problem, then they're not thinking at all. They're shut down. And it'd be better if they weren't shut down. If you ever thought about ADHD, people talk about ADHD, it's often associated with people who can't read. And so ADHD would be that you have a student, a picture of, if I describe a behavior of a student, okay, he comes in, he sits in this class, and he wiggles around in his chair. And then he talks to the little girl or the boy next to him, and he talks, and he's trying to talk to them. And then he interrupts the class, and he tries to talk to the teacher. Maybe he wanders around the room, gets out of his chair and wanders around the room. Well, if he can't read, then he may very well be looking for the answer, and he believes that the answer to his learning to read, it exists in that classroom, or that little girl or boy next to them, sitting next to him, knows the answer. The teacher knows the answer. She must know the answer. And no matter when you can't read, once you could read, then you'll stop having this goofy behavior, but it becomes urgent. People are making fun of you. They're calling you names, stupid, dummy, and you feel like there's something wrong with your brain. Mm-hmm. And so you are urgent about, and you're panicked about learning this information. Mm-hmm. So you're willing to interfere with everything, and it's all about you, because once you can do it, then you can join the class. Mm-hmm. So I thought of an experiment that would give you clarity about that, and that is that if I put $500 in an envelope and we go to a park and I ask you to close your eyes and I send you all over the park after I've hidden the envelope with $500, saying if you find it in the next half hour or an hour even, you can have the $500. So you get up and run around. And I put a psychologist on another bench, doesn't know anything about the $500 of the envelope. And I said, I need a diagnosis, on this person. This student could be young or old, doesn't matter. It could be an adult, doesn't matter. And they watched the student climbing up on the park benches and wandering out into the fountain and looking behind the statue and talking to people and saying, did you see somebody put an envelope? It's like this, about this big, it's white, and they're going to talk to strangers, and they're going to go all over the park. Well, a psychologist who doesn't know that that person's searching for an envelope with $500 in it, they believe that that person is definitely ADHD or ADD. This person's got some emotional and mental problems, right? But they don't. They just have a purpose. They're searching for something. And so when the person's in the classroom and there's bothering and moving all over the classroom, they're searching for something. It isn't the envelope with $500. It's the searching for the answers. How do you read? And no one ever says, it's real simple, because they stop searching. The answer is at the end of your finger, right at the end of your finger. There it is. And right at the end of your finger are symbols that make sounds. And if you say those correctly, those sounds correctly, you're going to hear yourself say a word. And you're going to hear yourself say a word that you've heard before. or that you've said before even.
That's a surprise.
And you're surprised. Like when people first start reading, it's really cool. They go, like the first word on our large list, we have this huge list of words that we use. I'm looking for that list in here. If I can give you anyway, I'll find it in a minute. But anyway, the first word is evergreen. So they go, they look at it and go, evergreen, yeah. Evergreen. I mean, like, surprise. Wow. That's evergreen. And obviously can see it's got a whole bunch of letters in it, and it's a 3-syllable word. Oh my God, evergreen. Oh my God. It's exciting. And that ends up being true for 475 words on that sheet at the end of them learning to read. And when they started, some of them had difficulty with the word milk unless I would show them a milk carton. They couldn't pronounce the word milk, and they drink milk. If any word you should know, it would be, of course, milk. It's been on the kitchen table since you were a baby. You know, it says milk on it.
Awesome. Craig, thank you for today. You know, the insight of understanding the reading method, and we're going to be here tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
No, 1:30? 1:30 or 1?
How about 1?
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, 1 o'clock. And
that's Pacific time.
That would be
no Eastern time.
Eastern Standard Time. That would be 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Or I'm sorry, Pacific Standard Time.
Okay.
Now that you got me on record.
Great. Okay. So we're going to be at 10 o'clock in California.
Yep.
And we're going to be 1 o'clock in Michigan and New York and Florida.
Yep.
And then there's some other time zones in the middle, and we hope you'll join us and figure that out.
Yeah. So I really, really appreciate it today. And until tomorrow, we'll have another topic. What do you think the topic, Mike, could be tomorrow? Could we start? You also wrote a book. And
I thought I'd tell people about my tour, where I was on a 3-year tour, a little bit more than 3 years, and where I traveled across the United States and the East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, up into Canada, New York, and then I went over across the pond to the UK. And lots of exciting adventures with traveling and people that I met, and then students that I met that had different challenges with reading. And you would imagine if I go to Scotland and they speak, I got a bit of time for you. I'm having some problems. I'm having trouble with my reading. You know, so they use their accent, and I would think it would be an interfere with the way I teach, talking the way I do. Didn't make any difference at all. It was very, very, very good.
Awesome. Thank you, Linka, for being here today, too. Linka, you're also the one that a couple of weeks ago that started this reading method, and you've felt and seen tremendous results. You're muted. I think somebody needed to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're still muted. Well, this is good. So you'll be on tomorrow, Craig. Well, that's okay, Linka. We'll be good to do this tomorrow. And Craig, thank you. It was a great blab today, and I appreciate it very much. And we'll get we'll edit this and get it out there. and have it for people to listen to. It's a wealth of information. So thank you, everybody, for being here today, and have a wonderful day. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.